What's up everyone, Adam here from Cape Crawlers, and today we're going to install a whole bunch of upgrades on our FCX24. Welcome back to the channel everybody. Today we're going to take a look at our FCX24. I got a pile of upgrades to put on this thing. We got the basics, we got the wheels with tires, we got linkage, we got steering components, we got some brass upgrades, we got some cool stuff to throw on this rig, and I'm super excited to share it with you, and I'm even more excited to throw them on to see what the performance gains are. The FCX24 has been out for a minute now, and it seems like the aftermarket companies are starting to really amp up their efforts around getting products out for these things. Specifically, Triel is really on the gas with putting out awesome products for this thing. They've got a whole line of excellent upgrades for the FCX24 now, and I've got my hands on a bunch of them that we're going to install in this video. Now, I really love Triel for a bunch of reasons. I think from a fit and finish and quality standpoint, they are second to none. You know, when you get Triel parts, you're getting quality parts. They're going to bolt up, they're going to fit, they're going to last, they're going to look good, and they're going to function well. So I'm really excited to get a whole bunch of Triel parts on this build and get this thing started off right. I really think this rig has a bunch of untapped potential in it, and I'm really thinking that these upgrades are going to wake it up in a big way. So I'm really excited to dive in here and get these upgrades on. It's going to be a fun one. So let's take a closer look at the upgrades that I got, and then we'll install them, and then we'll do some runs and see what the difference is. Right, let's check out our lot of upgrades here. So we got a whole suite of stuff from Triel. They're doing really great for the FCX24. So what we've got, let's take a look. We got a full set of linkage. So we have upper and lower links. These are aluminum. They're the standard length, so I'm not going to stretch it at this point. I'm just going to throw these nice, clean, sharp looking aluminum links on here. What it does do with the upper links is that it gets rid of the Y link that's on there currently and gives it two individual links. So we'll see how that does for articulation and drivability. So I'm excited to put those on. These bad boys, so I got these brass portal covers for the front. These things are heavy. I think they're 18 grams a piece, and it feels it. Yeah, 18 grams a piece for these. These are monsters. So that's going to be great. Some excellent weight up front. And then this I was really excited to get. This is an upgraded aluminum steering linkage. One thing that I've found with this thing is that the track bar in the front, the plastic track bar, flexes, and when you're up against a rough obstacle or technical situation, I found that track bar bends, especially out in hot weather when that plastic gets pliable. I was really running into not really issues, but complications with steering. So this is going to be a great addition to tighten up that steering and make sure that it stays nice and firm. RC all-wheel drive, these beautiful brass wheels, brass and aluminum wheels, the same style that I put on the Bronco, but the colors are reversed. So these have a black ring and a red center. And I think that'll just work really well with the Power Wagon. It's kind of the same theme that it's got going on now. So these things are monsters as well. They're about 30 grams a piece, 29 grams a piece, I think. These are going to be great. And I think I'm going to put the new Little Guy Racing Parts gripper tires on these things. Only because the Swamp Kings, I find I'm getting some clearance issues with the fenders in the front on the Power Wagon. So I think I'll put a little bit of a smaller tire on here, combined with these wheels. I think it'll be a good combo for the Power Wagon. So I'm pretty amped to try it out. So let's take a little closer look at these things, and then we'll get them installed. Let's take a little closer look at this thing. It's hard not to appreciate Triel for the quality products that they put out. Their fit and finish is just so good. I mean, the machine work, the finish around the rings here, around the edges, they just do such a good job, and it's always precision fit. So these Triel parts are so good. Same with the linkage. I mean, just beautiful hardware here. You do pay a little bit more, but I think the quality is certainly worth it. And it's really nice that the links come pre-assembled with the O-rings and everything already installed. If you've gone through a linkage set and had to put all those together yourself, it can be pretty tedious. But these Triel units, even the steering linkage, comes together fully assembled, ready to bolt right on. So these are very nice upgrades, super high quality, heavy too. These are so nice. I can't wait to get these installed. And the wheels, love the fit and finish of these wheels. These are so good. Once again, these are about 29 grams a piece. You know, they're pretty much vented. They behave like a vented wheel does, even though the center part of the wheel isn't vented. You get this vent in the ring, which makes the wheels behave like a vented wheel, which is nice. So if you don't want to vent your tires, which I already did vent the grippers, but again, had I not, it would be a different story. Very nice, super sharp, and so heavy too. And all this stuff, super heavy. It's just going to put a bunch of weight down around the wheels, down low, right where we want it. I think this is going to make a big difference as far as stability and performance goes. So I'm really anxious to see how the old Power Wagon does with these upgrades. So let's get them installed and see how it goes. So I'm getting into the installation here. So let me show you what I mean with the steering linkage in the front here. So under like any load, you can see look at that bar, the track bar there just flexes. And it doesn't take much, hardly at all. You know, and that's not a lot of pressure. And that thing's bowing out like crazy. So this is why I felt the need immediately to replace this piece. So these aluminum upgrades are really going to tighten up the steering and clean up that slop there. It's going to be a good upgrade. All right, getting ready to install these links. So as I do these, I like to line them up kind of as a skeleton on the side here to make sure I've got everyone placed correctly. Trill is nice because they've got the logos printed on the outside on each piece. You know, some of the Endura linkage in the early, one of the aluminum, in the early versions of the aluminum links had the logos printed on the inside. And yeah, that was a minor thing, but yeah, I appreciate these small details where the logos are printed where you want them to be. So I've sketched them out here. You know, I've got my upper links and my lower links here. So I got them all lined up. So what I'm going to do is start taking the stock links off. So let's start disassembling here. I like it. All right, we're back here. So I got everything all hooked up. Everything's in there. I had to do this a couple times because I got them all installed the first time. It was so tight. It was barely even moving. So I went in and I took one O-ring out. I took the inside O-ring out of each of these mounting points, and that helped it out a lot. It seems to be a lot more free flowing at this point. It's still a little sticky back here. And I'm thinking a big component of this is because when you mount up the lower links here, you get rid of this ball joint in favor of just some collars for the shock. But then there's nothing for the shock to pivot on. So what I ended up doing was just keeping these bolts a little loose so that there is some room for the head of the shock to move around, and that kind of gave me that movement somewhat like it had stock. But I don't know, when I'm thinking the setup with the stock linkage might have been better, actually. You know, I think about this action here and what I had to do. I mean, fit and finish is beautiful. The links are amazing looking. They bolted right up. Everything went smooth, but I'm just questioning the action. But let's see. We'll put it all together and run it and see if we get sticking points in the real world scenarios or not. But just my initial thoughts. I wish that we found a way to keep that ball joint for the shocks. It's kind of a bummer that we eliminate that with these links, but let's keep going and see how it goes. All right, next up are these heavy boy portal covers. Just got a pair of these. Just gonna do the front. These should hopefully pop right on. It should be pretty easy. They are heavy. Let's see. Let's get after it here.
It's not a game, it's a rage thing.
So here is our FCX24 with all of our upgrades installed. And how good does this thing look? Holy moly, right? I ended up doing a couple things different from our initial plan, just based on kind of pivoting as I was going through the build. One of the things that I changed is that I swapped the wheels out. So if you remember from earlier in the video, the wheels that I was originally going to put on this had red in the center and a black ring. The ones that were on the Bronco right here. Well, what I did was I did a poll on Instagram on who should get what wheels, and it was close decision, but I think it was 56% said that the Bronco should get the new red wheels. So the Bronco got the new red RC all-wheel drive wheels, and the Power Wagon got the black wheels with the red ring. And I gotta say, y'all were right, because both rigs look amazing. I am so pumped with how this thing looks. The gripper tires from Little Guy Racing Parts, were these not made for this build? I mean, how good does this thing look with these tires on here? Love the Swamp Kings. I felt like the Swamp Kings look fantastic as well, but these just fit the build so good. What a difference these things make. I did lose some width going from the stamped steelies, the RC four-wheel drive stamped steel wheels with the hubs flipped. I did lose some width, but I'm not sweating it because I gained a ton of weight with these new wheels, and I think the stance is just about perfect. I mean, it just looks fantastic. So these are a winning combo in my eyes for this thing. I think it's the right tires, the right size, it's the right width right now. I'm really happy with it. So this was a good move. One of the other things I did too, as you can tell, I took the bumper off and I trimmed the fenders. So when I was running into some clearance issues with the Swamp Kings, which is another reason why I was experimenting with smaller tires, like I mentioned earlier too, was that the Swamp Kings at full steer would really bind up on the fenders and the bumper. So I wanted to take a look at how to remove those obstacles, I wanted to take a look at how to remove those obstructions. And what's cool about the hard body with this thing is that it's only, I think, 6 screws, and you can take all of this whole assembly off. You can take the running boards, the fenders, everything pops right out of it. super easy. So I was playing around with having just the body on there with no fenders at all, but I couldn't figure out a way to mount the body on here, because when you take the fenders off and the steps, you also take the body clips off. So I experimented with some Velcro setup. I cut up an old battery tray from an FCX24 and tried to make a Velcro mount, but I just couldn't get it to fit right. So I thought, I'm just going to cut the fenders. And I'm glad I did, because I think it looks fantastic. It's got a nice, sleek, custom look, nice and smooth. I think it fits the character of the build really well, and it retains the ability to put the bumper back on if I want to, and also keeps the clips to mount the body, and it keeps the side steps, which I like, because it kind of functions as a rock slider and protects this blue paint as you're kind of rocking back and forth on obstacles. So I was happy to do that. And if I wanted to replace them, the parts for these things are dirt cheap. So another set of this whole black piece here, the steps and the fenders, it's like $6 for a pair. So dirt cheap if I wanted to replace it with the stock unit. But I don't think I'm going to, because I think it looks pretty much glorious right now. Let's take a look at the linkage. And then the linkage came out fantastic. With the one O-ring trick really kind of solved my gripes with it. It's nice and smooth, not floppy like with some of my SCX24s. With the one O-ring, they get really floppy, almost too loose in the linkage and the suspension. This feels pretty good. It's pretty loose and free, but it's not sloppy. So I'm happy with that. And the shock action seems smooth. So keeping the bolts a little loose just so that shock can pivot a little bit on that bolt seemed to really solve that issue as well. So overall, I'm really happy with how these things came together. The front shocks, so I took the front springs out because it was sitting too high, and as you'll see from the run footage, I've already had this thing out and about. You'll see from the run footage, it was lifting severely and it was kind of sticking right there. So when I took the springs out, running full droop, it just seemed to sort it out immediately. So this is a good setup. I would like to put some oil in the shocks to give it some dampening, because these things are, it's just hammering on those shocks. And the ability to put oil in here is really appealing to me, just to give some dampening. So I think I'll do that. Probably this weekend, I'll probably throw the O-ring kit in there and put some oil in the shocks for some dampening. Steering, vastly improved, I gotta say. I can feel that out on the course and real world driving. The steering is so precise, and there's no fade, there's no issues with the track bar bending, and just made a big difference in precision steering here. It did show that the servo is a little weaker than I initially thought. So I've got an Eco Power. I might throw the Eco Power on here, but we'll see. The servo is still holding up pretty good. I think I just wish I had a little more strength in some situations, and it's starting to jitter on me. So I think it might be kind of on its way out already, which is not unexpected with all of the weight that we put in the front and kind of the extra stress that servo's taken. Speaking of weight in the front, those big portal covers, look at the weight this thing's carrying up front. You can see the tires just sagging under its own weight up here. It is so heavy in the front. It wants to just topple over in my hands. It is so front heavy, which is excellent. So these wheels and the portal covers in the front give it a ton of weight. And the wheels alone are a huge weight addition, but combining those with the portal covers in the front, that's an immense amount of weight. So if we did, call it 60 grams a piece with the wheels, and then 18 grams a piece, so we added, almost 100 grams of weight just right on the wheels with those two upgrades. And you can feel it and you can see it in the performance. It made a huge difference. So why don't we do that? Why don't we cut to some run footage? You guys can check it out, and then we'll circle back to close this out, and I'll give you my final thoughts. I just made another quick mod. I took the springs out of the front shocks. I was getting crazy front end lift there. I'm sure you could tell from those earlier videos. So let's try it without the springs. Oh yeah, that's it. That's it right there. There it is. What do you think? Let's talk about it. I'm impressed. Are you impressed? I was mighty impressed with how this thing did out there on the course. Everything combined seemed to work really well. I mean, the gripper tires and these heavy wheels and these brass portal covers up front, man, could this thing grip. Climbing was immensely improved. Side hilling I thought might be an issue because I sacrificed some track width when I got rid of the stamped steel wheels. Felt really stable. I didn't have any issues with it rolling over horizontally. It did really well on side hills. It was really planted, and vertical climbing was okay. I think there's still some work to do from the vertical climbing perspective. I do think I'm going to stretch it. I do feel like it could really benefit from the stretched rear end. So I'm going to look into that. But mighty impressed. It worked really well. I think closing in the track a little bit with these wheels and tires helped it because I could capitalize on the benefits of the portal axles a little more. There was no hang-ups whatsoever, and I was able to hit some really nasty square-edged obstacles and kind of glide right over them. Even when I did get hung up, I was able to just kind of power through. Made a big difference. Taking the bumper off and eliminating the fender there made a huge difference in precision steering and approach angle. That thing's got a wicked approach angle on it now. I was able to hit things square on, almost 90 degrees. It felt like it took some really steep inclines on those rocks out there. So really happy with the approach angle, and just worked really well. I had some front end lift issues. I'm sure you saw that in the run footage, and then I addressed it kind of halfway through. But once I took the springs out, man, this thing was a beast. It still lifted, but it was controllable at that point. I might reposition the front shocks, kind of bring them more towards the front. I think they're laid back a little too much right now. So if I brought those back and up a little more, I might control the lift. But boy, it worked good. Man, I'm impressed. Axial, are you listening? This thing is coming. This thing with about $100 worth of upgrades made a huge difference. I mean, what a performance gain this thing displayed out there. I am so impressed. I had so much fun out there. It was just awesome. A couple of things I ran into. I mentioned the front end lift, which is something that I can dress with the suspension. The plastic hexes in this wheel in particular kept coming loose, kept spinning off of the pin inside. And I kept thinking I was stripping out my portals because it was 3-wheel drive and this thing was just free spinning. And I'd take the tire off and the pin would just fall out. So I definitely got to get some brass hexes. And I know Trio makes some of those too. I've also seen Matt over at 2FMRC. I think he was drilling out some of the FCX24 brass hexes. So I might do that in the interim and order the Trio hexes for the long term. But that was really, those two issues, the front end lift and the hexes that I ran into, those were really my only complaints. Otherwise, man, this thing was solid. I was very impressed with how well everything worked. So planted, it aggressively tackled some really gnarly lines out there with ease. And I think with an extended rear end, the longer wheelbase, man, this thing is going to be lethal. So I don't know, man. I think Axial, you gotta step up your game. Like I said, competition's good for the consumer. The FCX is coming to eat your lunch. I got to tell you, I still love my FCX24s, don't get me wrong, but man, this thing is a monster. And that was just a very minimal amount of upgrades, just the basics. So I can't imagine what it'll be like when the aftermarket starts to heat up and more products come out for this thing. It's going to be a weapon. But anyway, let me know your thoughts down below. What should I do next? Definitely going to stretch it. I think I'm going to do the oil-filled shocks. But is there anything out there that I must put on this thing? Let me know your thoughts. Also, let me know your thoughts, what you thought of the build, what you think of the build. It's coming along. Very impressed. As always, I appreciate you guys. Thanks for watching. Please like and subscribe if you haven't done so, and we'll see you in the next video.